All right, bear with me here. We go ahead.
We're talking.
What did I do? All right, hold on.
Subject matter here, and we were just starting to discuss the social advocacy that is going on. Groups are being formed to support around you.
Technical issues, of course. Hold on.
Yeah, it was when
we're talking about difficult.
All right, so we're going to start the meeting off. We have Tina. Can you introduce yourself, and then we're going to play a meeting, and then we're going to get into more depth. Okay?
Sure. My name is Tina Olivero, and I'm fondly known as Ben's mom. My son Ben passed away this summer from overdose of fentanyl, and it's been a horrific journey. I've since formed a foundation called Guardians of Recovery, helping parents, families, and people going through addiction. So, yeah.
All right, so we're going to play a video, and let's see how. Let's just play the video.
And discuss the social advocacy that is going on. Groups are being formed of support around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was when Ben died, it hit a note with everybody, because I think we've hit a point of critical mass where there's so many people impacted, one person in every single family. And now we had like a huge rash of people who overdosed from fentanyl. And it just was so striking to the community that everybody, we're now at the tip of that tidal wave where we're saying, okay, enough is enough, and things have to change from here forward. And there was an avalanche of parents and concerned citizens that came to the table and said this has to change. So we did a rally in Confederation Building. We're about to have a benefit, Ben's benefit, with musicians who are in recovery that can really talk about the journey of how they made it through, and their songs and music as beautiful mechanisms for storytelling. And we're also having in October down in Ben's Bench where Ben overdosed. It's become a memorial full of flowers. People go there, tell me that they see, they have dreams about him, that they feel his presence. There are people dropping off flowers there all the time and really getting in touch with what's important to them. And that's also become a place where we're giving out blankets and tents and mitts and hats to the homeless. So it's become sort of an icon or a spot to contribute and do good and see where we can fix the system.
Their strength is truly inspirational. Most mothers, most people would want to just huddle into a ball and cry.
And I cry when the tears come, and sometimes I'm not in the best shape and other times I'm doing fine, but helping people really has been my way through this. It's like, if I get 2 or 3 calls from a mom a day and I can help someone who their son is in prison and they should be in the hospital, and we make that shift happen, then that's a win. If we can have someone with mental illness actually get the medication or diagnosis they need, that's a win. If we can help a mom so that she's not in deep depression anymore, and we created a group every Sunday for parents with addicted loved ones, people with addicted loved ones, and they can meet and cry together and find support and community, that's a win. And I firmly believe that this is a community initiative. It's all volunteer. And if every single person in our community just did one thing a day, small thing, to advance mental health and addictions issue, we could solve this in a year from now if we all came together at that level.
There we are.
So I couldn't agree more with that. I also feel that it heavily is to do with mental illness, and when it's not addressed, and we have these services that are just, they'll go to the hospital and the hospital sends them away. It's the absolute nightmare when we see our family members needing the help and not getting it. So Tina, tell us more about everything going on with Guardians of Recovery, because I love your story, and I love your group, and I'm so sad to hear about your story. Apologies.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, the whole group really came out of the necessity to address the illicit drug crisis, and it's killing our kids across the country. Right now, the number one cause of death in our youth age 10 to 19 is illicit drugs. And that really needs to sink in to the Canadian population. Like, our kids are dying because of our structures and systems that we are allowing to happen, especially in places like BC, where they're legalizing minimal amounts of all of these drugs, including fentanyl. That whole culture, that mindset is actually enabling and killing our kids. And we're wiping out an entire generation of people.
I
Um,
agree.
and consequently, the ripple effect of all of that, what's happening is grandparents are raising their addicted kids. And there's enormous amount of dysfunction and disruption and chaos as a result of all that drug use. And the outcomes are, you know, like random acts of just like attacking people and murders for senseless $100 worth of drugs. It's it's unbelievable. Like, we don't even see stuff at this magnitude on Netflix. Like, this is so out of control that I don't know if it's so out of control people don't know what to do, or they're just like living in a complete fog. But our kids are getting decimated.
It's true. I am one of the grandparents who is raising my grandchild because of drugs. Both of her parents have had battles with drugs, and so I can relate as to how it impacts the children, how it impacts the family, and not just the people that are using drugs who are not getting the proper help that they need. And the system that we have in place right now, it's just not working. So you've done a lot of study on that. Can you tell us more about?
Well, for me, it was a mystery as to why Ben, ended up where he did, because he came from a great home. He had every benefit. We traveled the world. He was very smart. In grade 7, he was an honor student with distinction. He never had childhood issues or didn't have, PTSD or ADHD, or he was never diagnosed with hyperactivity. None of that. He was super, super smart, like off the charts smart.
Wow.
When Ben first smoked weed, the very first time, it immediately hit him, and it like unlocked bipolar. And bipolar is and schizophrenia is in our family genetics. So first and foremost, the majority of these cases, it's not a parenting error; it's a genetic brain illness that we have to acknowledge for what it is. Then as I started to do my research, like any parent, I was nonstop researching for 7 years while Ben had suffered through this. And I came across anosognosia because I couldn't figure out why people who were addicted didn't want help. That was just such a big question for me, because I knew that none of them wanted to live that way. I knew they didn't want to be couch surfing. Ben always told me, "I don't want to be this way, Mom." We had an amazing relationship, thank God. Like, I got to be in his life every day. And I had to make it so by understanding his illness and understanding what he was going through. And when you look deeper and you start to do the research, you realize that these people are not in denial, or they haven't just chosen not to use drugs. Their brain is actually shut down in the frontal cortex. And a lot of people have anosognosia. So anosognosia is not a common word yet.
No.
It will be. But at this point in time, people don't understand what anosognosia is, but it explains the majority of our people with mental health issues who are homeless. And we really need to pay attention to this, because anosognosia is the shutting down of the brain that stops people from having cause and effect. Like, you can try to, uh, reason with someone. You can try and talk them into changing. You can try and do everything, but they actually have a brain illness that stops them from having cause and effect and doesn't allow them to see consequences of their action. So, like, for example, with Ben, I would find Ben I chased Ben for 7 years trying to keep him alive. In the dead of winter, snow would be falling. It'd be 11 o'clock at night. He'd be out in a t-shirt and have not realized that the extent of that danger. And, consequently, he had, like frostbite on his toes and things like that because he'd get super sunburned in the summer. He just did not have cause and effect. And anosognosia, if people should do their research on it at the clevelandclinic.org. You'll find that anosognosia is present in Alzheimer's patients, dementia patients, bipolar patients. 40% of bipolar patients have anosognosia. They don't have cause and effect. They're not stubborn. It's not that they're stubborn and don't want help. They actually can't see that they're sick. 80% of people with schizophrenia that happens to as well. So here we are saying, oh, we're going to continue to give people safe supplies and more drugs and continue to perpetuate an illness that they don't have choice. They don't have, there's no such thing as choice in that situation, that medical condition. Their brains are hijacked. They don't have cause and effect. They can't see that they're sick. They're left to their own devices on the streets as if they have choice, when in fact we would never leave a patient with dementia on the streets. Yet somehow in our minds, we have created addiction as a choice, and therefore it's okay for us to leave them on the streets. If we actually tested people for anosognosia, which we can do, I think that we would find out that they actually have anosognosia, which is causing them to have no cause and effect, causing them to not be able to make life-saving decisions for themselves. And that's why all these people are dying, because you can have anosognosia as an underlying illness, or you can have anosognosia onset when you do drugs. And the drugs will shut down that part of your brain, the cause and effect. So these people are not bad people. They don't want to have addiction. They have an illness, predisposed genetic illness that shuts down that frontal cortex, that cause and effect. And in the case of Ben, how many times did I say to Ben, here's your home. You can come home anytime. Here's your bedroom, or let's go get help. In Ben's world, he didn't need help. He just didn't think he was sick. He could understand that the circumstances of his life were out of control, but for him to make a sensible decision, like to go and get help with this, the only thing in his mind was what all the people around him were telling him to do. People were looking at his life, and I spent 7 years watching Ben die in front of me for 7 years, and
Wow.
it makes me so angry that this is happening, and so sad that this is happening to all these families across the country. That when Ben died, I said to myself, there was no way I was going to continue in this addiction conversation, because it took the good out of me for 7 years. But when Ben died, I realized I didn't have someone in my corner standing and helping me and explaining these things to me and helping me get through it. And I need to help the other parents, and we need to help the kids that are on death's door here, because this is not right. And the whole concept of, giving people personal possession for drugs and making it legal, or not decriminalizing it, I guess, and also giving people, all of the supplies to use drugs. I think in certain circumstances, it's more helpful to have a clean needle than not. But we've created a way bigger problem, which is a society that perpetuates drug use. And on top of that, it perpetuates drug use with people who don't have any capacity. So I challenge anybody in the safe supply scene to show me that person actually has capacity to make a decision for themselves. And if you can prove that they don't, they can actually make a decision for themselves, that they do have capacity and that they don't have anosognosia, then I think it's a credible thing to do. They have choice. They can make their decisions on their own. Absolutely. But if someone has anosognosia, and they have a brain illness where they can't even make a decision for themselves. Consequently, they live on the streets and starve to death or die. That's our fault. That's on us. That's putting dementia patients back on the street. We don't give dementia patients fentanyl. We don't give them methamphetamines. We don't give them morphine. We don't give them crack cocaine. We don't give them heroin.
No.
Why would we perpetuate that with people with brain illness, anosgnosia, with bipolar patients, schizophrenia patients, which is the majority of our homeless?
Exactly.
It doesn't
So-
make sense.
And with the people that they have working in these facilities and these programs that are being paid for by the government, in what capacity would they be able to diagnose the anosgnosia? That's where I feel another disconnect is, that they're not looking into this, because I've never heard this word until you brought it to my attention, and it's like a light bulb went off.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense. Like, the results that we have can always be traced back to something going on with someone medically. People
Yes.
would never choose to live in a tent in the freezing cold.
No.
So we have to stop right there and trace it back and say, okay, what's beneath homelessness? Mental illness. What's beneath people not being able to work and not being able to feed themselves? Some sort of brain condition.
Yes.
So that's a medical consideration. What we've done is we dropped the ball medically. We let people go to the streets, overdose, and then we let them out of hospital again. But what we don't do is the smart thing, like Alberta is doing. When someone, shows up with mental health or addiction issue, the first thing that should happen is they should see a psychiatrist and get diagnosed, because people are in one of three places. They either have addiction, or they have a mental illness, or they have both. And all three of those require different treatment.
Agreed.
And we're just like putting everybody in the same boat, saying everyone is the same, and we're going to give you all supplies, and you can, you can possess up to 2.5 grams of hard drugs, including cocaine, crack, heroin, etc. Now, just think about, we are living in the devastation and the consequences of that type of thinking. And as far as I've seen, unless I'm wrong, I don't think we've legalized the manufacturing of fentanyl in this country. I don't think we've legalized the manufacturing and distribution of these drugs, yet they're in our society. So who's dropping the ball? And if they are in our society, now we've manufactured this very covert way of saying, okay, well, you've got these drugs. It's okay for you to go ahead and use them. Yet we're not allowed to manufacture them, and we're not allowed to distribute them. So where the hell did they come from? They drop out of the sky, and all of a sudden they got in someone's pocket. And as soon as you have 2.5 grams, like, we are turning away from an illegal drug trade of illicit drugs that is decimating our kids. Like, I'm all for doing whatever the hell you want. Do whatever you want. But when it comes to the point where our system is so lax and people are turning away at the judicial system, the police, people are turning away at policy, people are turning away at the medical system, looking away and accepting the fact that we have one overdose after another of kids. We've just had 5 overdoses here in the last 2 weeks in the St. John's area. Because someone put fentanyl in these drugs and are murdering kids. Like, when someone decides to put fentanyl in drugs, that's murder. That's not accidental death. We've used language that keeps all of this going. Oh, that person had accidental death. Oh, it's okay for you to possess 2.5 grams of morphine or fentanyl. We've created all that language. We've created all that tolerance, and we're destroying our country bit by bit by allowing all of that to happen. It's disgusting. The fact that parents and mothers are not rising up and just completely breaking this system down is beyond me, because we are Canada. Our families are Canada. We make up Canada. And it's us, the parents, that are the leaders of our families. Therefore, we are in control of how our destiny goes.
So I've got Apologies. I've got an article on the screen here, and it's from the National Post, and it is BC plans to give a safer supply of fentanyl to minors. How do you feel about them starting this and doing that to the children? And I'm talking minors.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on in BC. If I had to guess, I would say, there's a huge drug trade there, and it comes to our proximity to other regions, that these drugs are coming in, and they're going to use every single possible tool to create structures that are going to support this. I would want to know, who is actually making the decisions
Yes.
who's getting paid out to enable
Yeah.
this. All of this speaks to me of corruption.
It does. 100%.
Who's getting paid out? At the end of every single dead child is someone who either looked away or got paid out.
Yes. Now, here's what makes me concerned about the government making all this become our new normal is people look to the government and they look up to the government in a lot of cases. And we're told, and we've been trained our whole life, the government does what's best for you. The government does what's best for you. And with that in the back of your head, and the schools teaching children that the government does what's best for you, and the government is making all these drugs legal and easily accessible and starting to supply fentanyl to minors and safe supply. Why, like for people who have never touched a drug, this is going to make it seem appealing because the government is basically condoning it. Yes or no?
Exactly. Like when marijuana was legalized, that was done for a bunch of different reasons. But the end result was we now have 4 times more psychosis in the psych wards because of cannabis use disorder and cannabis psychosis. So, those figures have to actually come out to the public for people to be informed. And people need to understand that we're trusting in a government that's actually causing our people to get more sick. They're doing it with prescription drugs. They're doing it now with legalization of marijuana, and they're doing the exact same thing. Well, who benefits from that? The government benefits from taxes, and the illegal, illicit drug system benefits as well. Every single time, all you have to do is trace back. Is that person gaining a job? Is that organization paying for someone, to get money? That's the reason why our foundation was based on volunteers. Is like, we don't want people in all these jobs getting paid money to perpetuate a drug crisis. Like that, we want to be able to have people in positions because they care about their kids, they care about their family, they do not trust the government to make the right decisions for their kids. And it's time for us to band together in numbers as family members and parents, mothers and fathers, and to say, we're not tolerating this anymore. We are the government. We are the government, not the government that's in place.
You're so right.
Yeah. And we somehow, in all of this, we have allowed the civil servants, the servants of the people, to gain control and access and to provide all of these corrupt outlets supplying drugs to our kids, and our kids to the level that our kids are dying. I've lost my son because someone killed him with fentanyl. That's insane.
It is.
And I could not get my son help because why? The privacy law. The privacy law doesn't allow me to get my son into the hospital to get diagnosed for bipolar and anosognosia. That is criminal. That's negligent. That's happening across our country. That should never, ever happen.
No, and if we don't stop it now, can you imagine what's going to happen in another 5 years, Tina? What state of emergency Canada will be in?
People are going to stop having kids. And when that happens, the country crumbles. That's what's going to happen. People are going to stop investing in Canada. Like in Newfoundland, our tourism is amazing, beautiful here. Who's going to want to come here if they're going to go downtown and get shot with a friggin' someone just opens fires in the bar, which we're this close to that happening. We had to cancel our Christmas parade because of a gun standoff in the drug area. Like, this is just little tiny Newfoundland. This is happening across the country, which is why Guardians is a national organization. We want to build this across the country and have the voices of all parents heard. And for us to take back control, to rebuild our family unit. Our family unit is not just our children. Our family unit is our whole family unit. As
That's
our
right.
parents, as grandparents, as children, as cousins, as uncles, we need to rebuild our culture. And if we're going to be truly an inclusive society, which we so proudly, say we are, well, 1 in 6 people will get cannabis use disorder as a teen, 1 in 10 as an adult. Like, we don't have a system built for those people to be included in society for recovery. Our whole structure needs to be rebuilt so that all roads lead to recovery. If someone needs to take a drug as a bridge to help them, like with Suboxone or methadone, in order to temporarily to get off opioids and get into recovery, that's one thing. But to have people on Suboxone, like in this area, there's over 5,000 people in the St. John's and surrounding area on Suboxone, taking it with all kinds of other drugs.
Same here.
And Ben died with 7 different drugs in his system, including Suboxone. And I don't think you should ever give Suboxone to someone who possibly has bipolar. 2 months after Ben was given, he tried to get into detox. He was denied. He was sent to take Suboxone as an alternative.
Wow.
And 2 months after that, he was dead. That's criminal.
It is. And it's hard to absorb all this information when we can see how wrong the path to recovery is. And it seems that it's an impossible battle. How do you feel we can change?
The people who should be making the decisions about illicit drugs in this country are either in recovery because they know what it did to them and what it took to get back out, or the parents of families who are witnessing that their children, like I did, who have underlying mental illness and haven't gotten care. And if you're one of those people, your child deserves care, or your loved one deserves care, and they should not be, denied access because of anosognosia. I would bring Ben to the hospital and he'd say to the doctor, "Oh, I'm perfectly fine." Or he'd say to the judge, "Yeah, I know what's going on." And so that word capacity is wrong, because until you prove that that person has capacity, they have a chart as long as your arm for, medical issues from Hep C to this to that shows you they don't have capacity. They have, a court record of 26 missed court dates that prove to you on the outside they don't have capacity. Now it's your job to prove that they have capacity, because if their life is showing you they don't have capacity and you're giving them freedom of choice, you're negligent. You are negligent in doing so, because you're leaving someone with a brain illness on the street, and you wouldn't do that to someone with dementia. Yet our lawyers do it every day. Our police force does it every day. We have people in jail with mental illnesses every day because of drug issues. And we send our kids out who've overdosed back out on the street. This is a really important point. Ben took fentanyl. He thought he was doing cocaine. He took fentanyl. He overdosed. He went to the hospital the day before he died. And fentanyl stays in your system for 48 hours. If they had kept him in the hospital for 48 hours, Ben just got up, walked out of the hospital, and overdosed again and died.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So at the very least, when people overdose, we know that they fall under the Mental Health Act. They are a danger to themselves. At that point, medical assistance needs to come into play and psychiatric analysis needs to happen. Does that person have underlying mental illness? Do they need a certain type of medication? Should they be in hospital? Do they have schizophrenia? And what is the course of action and help for that person? How do we wrap around programs and services so that person is not on the street telling everybody they're fine?
That is the key to the whole unraveling the road to success, I think. And until we get those to connect, the extreme disconnect right now between the right help and the right programs helping the people in different ways, it all leads back to mental health and the hospitals. And we have literally zero help here in the Cape Breton region in that capacity. How is I feel like it's the same with where you are over there in St. John's.
I'm a grieving mother and I'm trying to deal with my own challenges, but I spend every day, I get 2 or 3 calls a day of people who can't get into detox, can't get into rehab. Why? Because there's no people to work there. There's enough beds, but there's no one able to work. We don't have the staff, we don't have the nurses, we don't have trained individuals, etc. And as far as I'm concerned, like we have mental health and addiction budgets and programs. If you can't get into detox the moment you decide to go there, the whole entire system is off. Like
Yeah.
our priorities, people say we don't have the budget for that. No, what we don't have is someone who's making that a priority. Basic leadership 101 is if you've got kids dying around you, you don't sleep at night until you solve that problem. Yet we have a whole country full of politicians sleeping peacefully at night while all our mothers are crying because our kids are dying.
Exactly. Exactly. Stressed out grandparents. I can't think of one person in my circle of who I know that has not been impacted severely or negatively because of the opiate crisis. And that doesn't matter where they are in Canada. Do you
Yeah.
think that that's fair to say with your life as well, that everybody you know has also been touched with it?
I don't know one family that doesn't have a family member in some way, shape, or form that's not affected by mental health and addictions, and that's only going to exacerbate as time goes by. So all of these very lax systems and, the whole like trial of, yeah, we're going to try it on where everybody can have cocaine and crack and heroin and fentanyl and methamphetamines and morphine, and while it destroys their brain and their body, it's okay for you to have up to 2.5 grams of that. That just opens up the door for so much. Like the cost of that to our society medically, with a like open-ended system where we all roads are not leading to recovery, the devastation that's going to occur in our judicial system and our medical system and our long-term housing crisis, we're sitting in it right now, and this is just the beginning. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can get a hold of this. Like there have been many countries in the past that have gone to hell in a handbasket, and smart people, smart leadership step up and turn it around and say, it's very simple. We're not tolerating that anymore. We lived in New York when New York, you couldn't turn around a corner and you get mugged. It's because someone accepted that society. Then Mayor Giuliani came in and said he cleaned the whole place up and just put a cop on every street corner, and that was no longer acceptable. Well, we no longer accept our kids being killed, and we want the leadership of this country to reflect that at every level, municipal, provincial, and federally. And we
Now,
shouldn't be accepting anything else.
I agree. Now look at this article. This is the one from CBC, and it's a few years old, but they actually considered putting an overdose prevention site could include a dispensing machine where you could have a scanner in your hand here in little old Sydney, Cape Breton, where you could go up. You know how you could buy a Pepsi, a can of pop, a vending machine like that would actually supply opiates. Could you imagine such a vending machine at a business where you could palm, get a little reading and it would dispense opiates? That's what they were considering here. Now, if it's this close,
I think before anybody does anything like that, they should be made to prove that doing so, the supply of these drugs is not going to decimate someone's brain. And unless you can prove that
yes,
that fentanyl is not going to decimate their brain, or that crack cocaine is not going to decimate their brain, they got no business setting up those things, because
right?
the onus is on them to prove that they are not doing. Show me the one person that's had a brain scan in a safe supply situation and prove to me that crack, that cocaine or that fentanyl or that drug is not perpetuating that person's illness and harming their brain further. Like any idiot knows that if you continue to take drugs, it's going to hurt your brain more and more. And the more you do it, the more it hurts your brain. So in that context, the onus is on these people that are setting up all these drug sites to prove that they are not hurting other people. And until they do that, they should have no right to do so.
Exactly. That infuriates me that there's even people thinking about doing things like that. How can we ever fix things with
that's money, that's corruption, that's power, that's drug users, that's people, even the people who are weekend users of our cocaine. They're like, oh, well, I only use it, I party with it on the weekends. It's all cool, man. And I think being able to have 2.5 grams is super cool. And without a care in the world of how it's going to impact the rest of society, it's all about me and what I want. And it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter that it's going to kill someone else's kid.
No.
That mentality that we're in right now, our culture is one where people don't give a damn. And we need to reshape our culture and get back to a society of families first. Families here.
The very one thing that we're ignoring is, for instance, my granddaughter. Both of her parents, her mom and her dad, have her entire life. She's 12 now, and she's only ever known her mother and father to have complete dependency on drugs, to the point where she's not able to be looked after by either of her parent. My daughter's on the right road now. She's working, but with our housing crisis, she can't afford to get a place other than a bachelor apartment to even have her child come back and live with her. So it's just one crisis onto another. But as far as the children that are the children of the addicts, why does the children seem to be getting lost in this? Like, they don't matter.
That's the thing. Like in Canada, we've had, opioid toxicity deaths in the numbers of like 32,000. Just think about that. So we've got 32,000, 33,000 people, parents who've lost their kids, or someone who's lost their loved one in the family. And all of a sudden there's a big gap. Not only is the family dealing with the fallout of all that addiction and that death, the kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. This is a huge cost to the economy. It's a huge cost to the family emotionally. It's a huge cost to the medical system. And it just ripples and ripples and ripples and ripples. Like, we have built a society that if a kid is hyperactive, then we're going to sedate them with drugs. No, you don't try and get a fish to climb a tree. Let a fish swim. And that's what we're doing to our kids. Like, what the hell is wrong with us? Why are we trying to put everybody in these places? And where's our creativity? Like, I don't think we should have rehab. I think we should have recovery resorts. Like, let's use a little bit of creativity and make these places beautiful, amazing,
and affordable.
Yeah. Like, I want to create sober living homes and sober living cultures. That's my vision. And where people feel included. And when they go there, it feels like a resort, not like some institutional place that nobody wants to go to. Let's do art. Let's do music. Let's do design. Since Ben died and Guardians of Recovery started, we've helped 32 people get to detox and rehab by fighting for them. And we've helped over 200 families. We've just put in like 5 different programs. What kind of programs? Spoken word poetry, creative graphic digital design, dealing with anxiety and depression. All of these programs are free for people to take. Things that are, people want to create their communities. They can do them online. They can do them guitar, songwriting, like building the arts, using the arts as a mechanism for transformation from addiction to recovery. Like, we're responsible for building the culture that is going to allow people and kids to succeed in recovery. And once recovery is cool, we will have won this thing.
You're
But
right.
yeah, it's people like Jelly Roll and those guys that are speaking up against fentanyl and really are holding the hearts of what's actually going on with a very high level of authenticity that are going to help us win this game. And it's people like you, Janet, who, you don't have all the resources in the world to have a big studio and camera team, but you're doing your damnedest and you're doing whatever you can to put together a program like this on StreamYard. And God love your heart for doing it, because you're standing up for people, you're getting these messages out there, and you're doing it with whatever resources you have. You're my hero. You're the people that make this country work. And I'm so thankful.
Oh, thank you, Tina. Well, on that note, I mean, I'm not sure if you have anything more to add. You've got me emotional saying such sweetness. God love you.
God,
But
for taking
I just,
care of those kids.
with no having somebody who's in government or politics now coming in to change the way that the road has been paved up to now, we don't stand a chance. So we need to really put the pressure on our community leaders and start letting them know that we need change. And if we're not the voice of change, nothing will happen, because they don't have mind readers, and they don't see faces like yours enough, Tina, or faces like mine, to let them know how it's impacted so far into our family, right into the next generation. My
Yeah.
granddaughter isn't at, the age yet to be out on her own, but she knows that because of all these things that are going on, it's already changed her life. And I want to make a positive difference in her life and show that my brother didn't die in vain, when he overdosed up in Ontario. And if we can just save, one person at a time, one family at a time, from going down what we've endured in all this nightmare of loss and heartache and hardship, I think it's well worth our whiles to continue.
It's so simple. COVID-19 was not bigger than this illicit drug crisis. If we mobilize ourselves with that level of creativity, focus, and intention as a country, as a society, we would fix this thing like that. So that's what it requires. And if it's not happening, stand up. Have a protest. If it's not happening, contact us at guardiansofrecovery.foundation. If it's not happening, because what my role is, I see my role is empowering people to empower themselves to fix this thing. And that means every single one of us.
That's right. And one thing that I find is the more we stand up, I don't know about you, but I get an awful lot of online hate. And we have to be able to look past that and not let that take you off your path. And if I have any message today, it's to anybody who's been feeling any negativity from others online. Ignore it, okay? As Frankie McDonald says, ignore the hate. Continue on with your love path, with your doing what you feel is right to help people, and don't let others discourage you.
I believe that people have differing perspectives, but when it comes to hate and other viewpoints like that, I think we're missing information. To me, that's an opportunity for education. Bring me your differing view. I want to hear it. I want to know if you can prove to me that that person doesn't have anosognosia before you pump them with fentanyl. I want to know. And if you can prove that to me, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, I love that. And I'd love to see them prove it to you as well, because I think that there's no way that they could or would, because like you said, it has a lot to do with corruption and the wrong programs in place right now. So we'll end the show with that. And I can't thank you enough, Tina, for coming on here and telling everybody about your path and your journey with Ben. And you're welcome to come back on the show anytime. Guys, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having me. God bless you.
God bless you as well. Take care.
Bye.